I saw my reflection move before I did. Not in a mirror. In the black bead of the camera lens above my daughter's crib, a dull, glassy pupil catching the nightlight. For a heartbeat, my face tilted when my head stayed still. It was like watching a thought leave me before I could think it. And then, just as fast, everything snapped back. Perfectly normal. Perfectly quiet. I know how that sounds. I'm not the imaginative one in our family. If you ask anyone who knows me, they'd say, Nadia will measure it, chart it, label it, and put it in a folder. I do data entry for an insurance firm. I listen to numbers all day. I like verifiable things. You don't need a big personality to guard the truth. You just need to notice when 1 second doesn't match the next. The baby monitor was supposed to help me sleep. Our daughter, Mira, was born in March. And by the end of May, my husband, Ajay, had to fly to Dubai for a 3-month contract. We argued about the timing. And then we stopped arguing because there were diapers and stitches and milk and a soft, warm head that smelled like almond oil and laundry detergent. He promised to video call every night. He promised to bring back a ridiculous toy camel. It was fine. We were fine. I told myself the camera would make it safer to be alone. It was a good model, or that's what the reviews said. Motion adaptive recording, predictive caching, cloud redundancy. I read the words like a lullaby. The base station made this small, settling click when it switched to night vision, and you could almost feel the room lean toward sleep. The nursery was a postcard. Pale walls, one watercolor moon, the crib by the window with the blackout shade. The door stuck a little at the lower hinge, so I had to lift it. Just a breath when I eased it shut. Familiar, controlled, mine. The first time the feed skipped, I didn't even notice. Mira was asleep, and I was doing that thing new mothers do where we stare at our phones like they're holy text, just counting breaths, counting the rise-fall of a tiny chest, counting the number of minutes I could probably nap. The timestamp ticked in green in the corner. 2:12:58, 2:12:59, jump, 2:13:01. 2 seconds gone. That's it. No alert. No buffering pinwheel. I wrote it off. Our internet hiccups when the elevator in the hallway shudders to a stop. Life hiccups. The second time I noticed because the sound cut mid-whisper. The monitor app has this faint noise gate. It smooths the room tone, turns the air itself into a sheet. You get used to the hush. But that night, there was a tiny coo from Mira, the soft mouth-closed kind that slides out when she dreams, and the coo was clipped. It started, and then it wasn't there. When the audio came back, the timestamp was 2:13:03. 4 missing seconds. I pressed back with my thumb, scrubbed the timeline. The app resisted, then yielded like warm putty. Nothing. Gap. I still told myself it was the network. Power line interference. Weather. I put a note in my phone. Monitor skip, June 7, 2:13 a.m., Forskerens. I slept on the couch outside the nursery that night anyway, my cheek against the armrest, my toes going numb. When Mira stirred, the camera switched to color, and the world poured in again, bright and simple. You can live with a glitch when the morning forgives it. What I couldn't forgive was the door. 2 nights later, I noticed the nursery door was open a pinch in one frame, and in the frame after the skip it looked closed flush. Not much, a millimeter, maybe 2, but the shadow line along the jamb was different. The light on the hallway floor was different. I replayed it 10 times, then 20. Open, skip, closed. My stomach went strange, like realizing you've swallowed a small, hard thing by mistake. I got up and checked the door. The lower hinge stuck as always, the latch seated with a familiar click. Every part of my apartment that mattered had some tone to it, and I knew those little songs. The sigh of the AC, the faint hum of the fridge, the latch's blunt little kiss. I held the door exactly where it had been in the video and took a picture down at the floor to measure the light line. Then I closed it and took another. Then I set my phone in the hallway and filmed myself opening and closing the door 30 times, so I'd know if the blur of movement could fake the difference. I went back to the couch. I watched the footage. It didn't match. Someone had shifted it between frames. I deleted the video, I don't know why. Shame, maybe. Or the superstition that documentation turns a fear into evidence and evidence obligates you to act. The next morning I emailed the manufacturer anyway. Hi, I'm seeing intermittent frame loss at exactly 2:13 a.m. with audio gating, I wrote, attaching the app logs. Cross-referencing with a secondary hallway cam suggests state changes during lost time windows. It was an email I might have sent from work about a spreadsheet macro, proud of its own clearness. A technician responded 3 hours later. Thanks for reaching out, Nadia. We'll schedule a remote diagnostic tonight between 1:30 to 3 a.m. Leave your unit plugged in and connected. You may see some reboots. A smiley face like they were promising to clean my gutters. All day I tried not to count the hours. I carried Mira around the apartment and narrated the world to her. This is the window. This is the spoon. This is the fat pigeon who thinks he pays rent. Ajay called from a hotel room that glowed sterile blue, and I told him everything was fine. Everything was boring. We were ships. I loved him. He said, "Get some sleep, Nods." He said, "Text me if anything weird happens." I didn't tell him about the door. Saying it out loud felt like choosing a side. At 1:50 a.m., I made coffee I wouldn't drink, because coffee felt like armor. I placed my phone on the arm of the couch and opened the nursery feed. The gray night vision made the crib look like a white boat on dark water. Mira's arm was thrown up by her head. Babies are small drunks that way. The little red LED on the camera glowed steady. I waited. The technician's script promised brief encoder resets. I told myself I would see them happen, and seeing would mean control. At 2:12:56, the hallway camera picked up a speck of dust and decided it was motion, lighting the corridor with a brief, flat backlight. I watched the 2 feeds at once, nursery on the phone, hallway on the tablet on the coffee table. A split screen of my life. On the tablet, the sliver of light under the nursery door made a dull bar across the floor. On the phone, Mira slept, mouth open now, a little O. 2:12:59, 2:13:01. The nursery skipped. The hallway did not. On the hallway feed, that sliver of light widened, then narrowed, then disappeared, then came back wrong. Softer, as if the pressure on the door had changed in some tiny, undeniable way. On the nursery feed, Mira slept through it all. I felt a pressure behind my eyes like a hand. A part of me, the folder maker, the documenter, broke ranks and ran. Another part stayed and watched. I turned the hallway audio up. No footsteps, no handle turn. But the hallway mic has this faint directional bias, and I swear there was a change in the room tone. A new shape to the air, like someone taller than me had walked into the sound field and made the noise bend. The red LED on the nursery cam flickered. Not off, not on. That insect blink texts say never means anything. I stepped into the hallway. The door was closed, latch seated. I did not open it. I pressed my hand to the wood and felt nothing human on the other side. When I sat back down, the app logged. Remote diagnostics started. The feed froze, then went black. Then came back as a still image like a sick postcard. The crib, the empty window, the nightlight. A still that looked like it had been sharpened and brightened by an algorithm before being handed back to me as a comfort. Under it, "Please do not close the app. Your device is being optimized." I stared at that word. Optimized. Once, after a minor surgery, a nurse told me they were optimizing my pain. The word belongs to machines who make promises they can't feel. I pinched to zoom on the still. My own reflection rose in the glass of the camera lens like a ghostly coin. The baby blanket had a tiny embroidered star right where Mira's chest should be. I watched the still for a full minute, then 2, as if my attention could make it honest. That's when the image changed. Not a live feed, another still. The angle was the same, but the crib's blanket looked smooth to fraction, like a careful hand had brushed it. I might have dismissed it if everything else hadn't already tilted, but in the hall my tablet showed the hallway was empty, quiet, unchanging. Only the nursery's stills were different. A chat bubble popped up in the app. "Hi Nadia, this is Keon from support. I'm running a deeper analysis. You may see frame substitutions during cache rebuild. This is normal." I typed, trying to sound normal. "Are those substitutions pre-recorded?" He responded, "We generate them from your own footage to maintain continuity. Should be indistinguishable." "It isn't," I typed. "I can tell. Please stop." 3 dots, then, "Almost done. Don't worry." I closed the chat. The word "don't" did its trick, unlocking its opposite. The still changed again. This time it was darker. There was a soft band of shadow along the lower edge of the window shade that hadn't been in the first 2. I don't remember deciding to stand, but I did. I moved to the nursery door and, with the movement of someone trying to pull a thorn from skin without letting the skin know, I lifted the handle and pushed. The room smelled like powder and cedar. The nightlight cut a gold triangle on the wall. Mira slept. The camera's LED stared like a patient wound. I stepped to the crib. The blanket was smooth, yes, but not in the place the still had suggested. There, an inch by her hip, a wrinkle remained. I looked up at the camera and saw my reflection move exactly when I moved. Relief came sharp and stupid, like laughing after a trip. "Okay," I whispered, trying to convince myself. "Okay." My phone buzzed. "Diagnostic complete. Please rate your experience." I pressed the screen so hard my thumb hurt. Behind me, the door whispered as the air conditioner turned over. For 3 nights after that, nothing happened, or nothing I could prove. The feed rolled smooth. The timestamps behaved like good citizens. At 2:13 a.m., nothing skipped. I started to wonder if I'd been looking for something to be wrong because my husband was gone, and the bones of the apartment at night sometimes sounded like people asking to be let in. I slept a little. I stopped drinking coffee at 1:45 a.m. I opened the chat transcript and reread the part about frame substitutions. I told myself this was the shape of modern life. We let software smooth our edges, and the price is an occasional mismatch we agree not to see. Then a week later, the monitor blinked red at 2:13 a.m. again. Not an alert, just the LED. A single insect blinked like a lid hiding a pupil. The feed didn't skip. The audio didn't cut. I held my breath and counted to 10. When I exhaled, my phone vibrated and the app minimized itself, as if a hand had knocked it. The home screen wallpaper stared at me. I tapped the app icon again. It demanded I log in. You don't think about how often your thumb recognizes your life until it doesn't. I entered the password and watched the little secure dots bloom. Invalid. I retyped it, slower, like sincerity could persuade an algorithm. Invalid. I used Face ID. The lock spun and then the app opened like a mouth. The feed showed the crib. The timestamp read 2:13:24. The hallway cam, still open on the tablet, read 2:13:24. Everything matched. A quiet landed in me. Not relief, not fear. More like the moment right before you realize you're about to drop a glass. I leaned toward the phone and saw it again. In the black glass of the camera lens above Mira's crib, my reflection wasn't mine. It was shifted left a click, like the beginning of a shrug, a posture I was not holding. The more I tried to freeze to match it, the more it disobeyed me, as if the glass were remembering another movement. I blinked. The reflection corrected. There's a trick your mind learns when you're sleep-starved. You can graft an explanation on anything if it gives you 10 minutes peace. I told myself the camera dome was convex, that angles bend, that the eyelash of my hair over my forehead had made a moving shape. I told myself anything that allowed me to back away from the crib without picking my daughter up and running down the stairs and out into the street in my socks. The next afternoon, while Mira napped, I called the manufacturer and demanded a human voice. This is Keon, the same one from chat. He sounded young in that way tech support sometimes does, like a nice kid earning money to buy a better version of the thing he was helping me fix. I said, calm but tight, I need to understand exactly what frame substitution means. He said, reassuring, it's a continuity feature. When there's a corrupted segment, the system interpolates from adjacent frames. That's not the same frame, I said. Interpolation is the creation of a frame that never existed. A beat. Well, that's one way to put it, he said. Look, if you're uncomfortable, we can disable it. Disable everything, I said. No remote access, no caching, no substitution. I want raw. He said, we don't call it raw, but okay, done. You'll have some dropped frames if your network. I'll take the drops, I said. And Keon, if your system ever sends a still image to my phone again while my camera is supposed to be live, I will throw the whole unit in the bin. He said, careful. It won't. He was wrong. That night, the app stayed live. The LED held steady, blank and patient. At 2:11, I texted AJ, awake? No reply. At 2:12, the hallway cam didn't catch dust, didn't flare. At 2:13 exactly, the nursery audio picked up a new texture you could barely hear. Not a sound, really, but the suggestion of one, like breath in another room. I leaned in. The phone warned me my battery was low. I plugged it in. The feed sharpened and then, for less than the time it takes to swallow, went still. The still was darker than the live feed. I could see each pixel like the grain of a cheap print. The crib was the same. The blanket was the same. The nightlight was a little halo. But somewhere a decision had been made, and the decision was that I didn't need movement anymore. I whispered, terrified, "No." The still stayed. And then, because the world cannot resist symmetry, the hallway cam flashed. Not motion, a systems message. New device connected. I had never connected a new device. There is a sensation I hope you never have. The sensation of knowing that if you call the police right now, by the time they arrive, the evidence will have erased itself. I stood up anyway. The hallway felt thinner, like a shirt held stretched. Every step sounded like the first step I'd ever taken. I put my hand on the nursery door and felt the cold through the wood. My mouth said, "Please," though I don't know if I was asking the door or God or the part of me that still believed in folders and labels. I opened the door. Live movement returned. The fan stirred the air. The LED burned steady. Mira slept, a hand on her cheek. The still image had been replaced by life the way a dream is replaced by the sound of your name, leaving no law you can prove. I walked to the crib like a pilgrim. I set 2 fingers against Mira's soft ribs and felt the staccato of her tiny heart. I watched the camera. My reflection moved when I did. I waited there until the numbers said 0220. My legs ached. My phone battery crawled from red back into yellow. In the corner of the feed, a message slid up. "For your security, we've enabled advanced anomaly detection at 021300. Your home is safer with us." I laughed then, a small broken thing. My home has never been safer. My home has never been stranger. These are both true at once. I picked up Mira, heavy with sleep, and brought her into my bed and lay there listening as the apartment did what apartments do. It remembered. Outside, a thin rain started and the sound turned the city into a single whispering animal. At 3:11 a.m., the Monitor app sent a summary. No anomalies detected. The red LED winked once, like a secret told out of order. I turned the screen face down and tried to sleep, and when my eyes finally closed, I dreamed of a hallway with no doors at all, only walls that breathed in when I breathed out, and breathed out when I breathed in. I unmounted the camera and put it in a drawer. I told myself I would return it, that the box was still in the closet behind the winter coats, that some other mother could trust a machine where I could not. I held Mira on my hip and ate toast and tried not to think of 213 as a place instead of a time. The apartment felt smaller in the daylight, like the corners had stepped closer to listen. I opened windows. I put a pot of cardamom tea on the stove. Normality as a ritual. If I had had incense, I would have burned it. I would have given the air something to hold other than my fear. Around noon, a notification slid onto my lock screen. "We noticed your camera is offline. Tap to reconnect." I ignored it. Another. "Security is better when your devices are online." Another. "Enable anomaly digests for peace of mind." They stacked like polite strangers who wanted things from me. I turned off notifications. Peace lasted exactly as long as it took me to check the hallway cam out of habit. The timeline had a marker I didn't set, a little red flag at 2:13 a.m. labeled Event. You will ask why I tapped it. You will ask why, if I was so afraid, I kept choosing to open the door. There's a cruelty to fear. It convinces you that the only way to survive is to see the whole shape of the thing that wants you. I tapped. The hallway clip played. Nothing moved. The lights kept their silent truce. But the audio, if you feed it into your ears with the volume high enough that it hurts, you can hear a soft, throaty whisper near the end. A breath that isn't mine, that isn't any appliance. The word might be now. It might be no. It might be nothing at all. But the hallway cam wrote the word event anyway, and put it where I could never forget it. That afternoon, I called the building manager and asked if anyone else had reported strange behavior on their cameras. He said, "Lady, people report strange behavior on their cats." I asked if the maintenance crew had accessed my unit. He checked a ledger. No entry logs. I asked if the building had ever had incidents. He said, dismissive, "Security is top-notch. It's the whole selling point." There was a pause, and then a different voice, older, came on the line, the manager's manager maybe, and said, in a tone that made the air feel cold, "If you believe your safety is compromised, call the police." I didn't. That night I told Ajay. I told him flat but honest, leaving out the parts that would make him want to book a flight he couldn't afford to miss. He said, concerned, "Change the locks, sleep with Mira, keep the lights on." He said, trying to sound casual, "It's tech. It's always tech." He sent me a link to a different brand of monitor, one with a cartoon mascot that made me want to cry. I did change the locks. The locksmith was a woman with a gentle voice who hummed while she worked. She said, friendly, "You'd be surprised how many people do this right after a baby." I said, honest, "I am not surprised by anything anymore." She laughed, and the laugh settled in the room like good dust. The new latch clicked a new song. I tried to memorize it immediately, as if that could buy me anything. At 10 p.m., I stood in the doorway of the nursery and looked at the empty corner where the camera had been mounted. The absence was a shape of its own. I told myself it was fine. I'd trust my ears, my gut, my own legs. I shut the door. I went to bed. I placed the baby monitor base station in a drawer beneath a stack of manuals and warranties, as if paper could weigh down whatever wanted in. At 2:13 a.m., with no devices connected, with no apps open, with no LEDs to watch or betray me, I woke up anyway. No nightmare, no sound, just waking. The room was soft with the kind of dark that is loyal to you until it isn't. My ears wet out like hands. In the silence, a low electronic hum threaded the air like a stitch. It was the kind of noise we drink all day without tasting. Routers, chargers, coils. It felt the way the word optimized had felt, like something that knew more about my life than I had given it permission to know. I lay there and stared at the ceiling and counted my breaths, and listened for a whisper that might be now, or no, or nothing. Somewhere in the apartment, a light sound like a soft fingertip brushed the wall. I didn't move. I pictured the hallway timeline with its red flag. I pictured the still image as a coin in the throat of the night. I pictured the glass lens with a face inside it that was almost mine. I didn't move. In the morning, the app on my phone, the one I had deleted, had reinstalled itself from the cloud. Its icon sat where it had been before, as if I'd put it there in my sleep. When I pressed it, the welcome screen asked me to select my device. One was listed. Nursery cam. Online. The drawer was closed. The camera was in it. The power cord was not. I hadn't plugged it in. I touched the name anyway. The screen shifted. The feed opened. There, in the bright noon of my own apartment, I watched a live video of the nursery with the camera mounted on the wall where it had been taken down. The lens stared at the crib. The nightlight was off. Mira's mobile swam in a slow, lazy circle that it could not make without help. No, it's the faint scrape of the mobile's felt animals brushing one another. The timestamp read 12:03:09. On the hallway cam, the same. I blinked and the feed stayed. I looked up and the wall was blank. I looked down and the wall had a camera. The app added a small red dot in the corner. Recording. I closed my eyes. I opened them. The red dot remained, patient. I put the phone face down again as if that ever changed the truth behind it. I went to the nursery and opened the door and stared at the real, empty corner where the camera wasn't. And I tried to figure out which version of my life to believe. One of them had to be lying. I chose the one without the red light. I chose the wall I could touch. I chose the part of me that still believed in doors that stick and latches that sing. I picked up Mira and carried her to the window, and we stood in the rectangle of sun, and I said, "This is the light. This is not a trick." And then, because I couldn't help myself, I listened for the hum. It was there, steady and far, like something waiting for its hour. Forward today. I said now. I thought unplugging it would end things. That's how I've always handled the world. When something misbehaves, remove its power, isolate the fault, wait for the hum to stop. But silence isn't the same as safety. It's just a cleaner room for fear to echo in. After that day, I started recording everything myself, analog, not cloud. A second-hand handheld camcorder from a pawn shop 2 blocks away. No Wi-Fi, no app. Just a small tape that whirred when it was awake. I aimed it at the crib from a shelf across the room. I told myself this was proof insurance, a sanity check. But each night when I pressed record, I felt like I was feeding a hungry thing. A first night passed without incident. Mira slept, and the camcorder light glowed a dull red instead of the camera's sharp one. I rewound it in the morning. The sound of the tape running backward comforted me, a rewind that meant nothing had crept forward while I slept. The second night I woke at 2:14 a.m. for no reason at all, the exact minute that came after the skips. My mouth was dry. I checked the hallway, empty. The nursery door, closed. On the camcorder, the red light blinked steady. I let myself believe I was winning. In the morning, I played the tape. At 2:12, static. At 2:13, nothing. At 2:14, the picture returned. The crib, untouched. But the sound had changed. A faint, rhythmic thump under the room tone, too even to be Mira's breathing, too fast to be the fridge. I turned the volume all the way up. The pattern was like 2 heartbeats slightly out of sync. Mine and something listening. I called my friend Eliana, who'd helped me set up the baby monitor originally. She's a network engineer, the kind of person who reads router manuals for pleasure. She answered half asleep. "You're still messing with that camera?" I turned it off. "This is different. This is analog, but it's happening again." "You need rest, Nads. These systems have residual magnetics. You probably..." "No, Eliana, it's not data corruption. It's something using the pattern. Send me a clip. I did. She texted back 10 minutes later. Noise floor shows modulated interference, almost like Morse. You recording near a power line? I wasn't. I lived on the 8th floor. Nothing above me but sky. That was when I realized what the pattern spelled if you counted short, long intervals. 213. The number itself wasn't cursed. It was just a coordinate in time. But it had started behaving like a person. I began marking the nights with tape labels. Night 1, Night 2, Night 3. Each morning the labels would be there, but sometimes the ink looked faint, as if the marker had dried between strokes. I started rewriting the same numbers over and over until my handwriting bled through the paper. Ajay noticed during a call. You sound thinner. What's going on? Trying to smile through the phone. Sleep, that's all. He said, half joking, throw the baby monitor out the window for me, okay? I said, quietly, I already did. He didn't laugh. By the 10th night, the sound came through the camcorder even when I wasn't recording. A soft, mechanical tick that pulsed from the power socket, traveling up through the floorboards. I could hear it faintly even during the day, like an itch at the edge of hearing. I tried moving the crib to another corner, thinking maybe it was electrical. The hum followed. Mira started stirring more at 2:13. Always that time. Always a small gasp, like she was surfacing from a dream too deep for her lungs. I'd rush in, hold her, and she'd settle instantly, heavy and trusting. The fear wasn't of losing her. It was of being witnessed by something I couldn't define. Then came the night the technician called back. I hadn't contacted them again, but at 1:47 a.m., my phone lit up. Kian, support. I hesitated, then answered. Nadia, just following up on your case. We noticed an anomaly cluster near your device ID even though you disconnected it. There is no device ID. I removed it. Huh, that's odd. The signature's still pinging. From where? From inside the subnet you used. I whispered, terrified. This is a baby monitor, not a haunting. He laughed lightly, but it sounded hollow. Sometimes the cache persists. Try factory reset. I already did. Then maybe it's mirroring from a backup node. Happens when someone shares access. No one else has access. Silence. Then lower, colder tone. That's impossible. The line clicked. I tried calling back. Voicemail. At 2:13 on the dot, the camcorder stopped recording mid-frame. When I checked the screen, it displayed a blue error, tape full, though it had half an hour left. I rewound a few seconds. The last clear frame showed the crib. The next one showed the crib empty. Then a blur of static that looked, for half a second, like a hand reaching across the lens. I checked the crib. Mira was fine. The camera, still on its shelf. But when I turned it off, the red light didn't go dark. I had to pull the battery out. The next day, I went to the local police station. I told them someone might be accessing my cameras remotely, maybe breaking in, maybe stalking us. The officer listened with the politeness reserved for people who sound halfway between frightened and unhinged. He asked if I had physical evidence. I showed him the tapes. He said they couldn't play them, no compatible machine. He took one anyway, promised to log it as a domestic interference concern. If anything physical happens, call 15 immediately. He didn't say if anything real happens, but that's what he meant. That night I tried something else. I left my phone off, every screen black. I sat in the hallway with a candle, old school, analog, pure. The wax smell mixed with baby powder. For an hour, nothing. Then, faintly, a shape of light under the nursery door. Not steady, but pulsing, like a notification breathing in the dark. I whispered to myself, "It's unplugged." The light continued. I opened the door. No LED, no camera, no device anywhere. But the light was there. A glow spread across the crib rail, the same cold hue as a standby indicator. It hovered like memory made visible. I waved my hand through it. My shadow broke it. It returned. When I stepped back, the glow moved, following me a fraction slower than it should have, like after-image lag on an old screen. I whispered, "Stop." The glow dimmed. I said, in disbelief, "Are you listening?" The glow blinked once, twice. Pause. Once. Short, long, short. Morse again. 2, 1, 3. That was the first time I cried without noise. My body did it, but my throat refused sound. After that, the apartment became responsive. That's the only word I have. Doors that had always stuck now opened if I touched them gently. Lights flickered in acknowledgement when I entered. It wasn't haunted like in movies. It was cooperative, aware, almost kind. Until it wasn't. 2 nights later, I woke with Mira crying. Not the hungry cry, the terrified one that comes from the gut. I ran to her. The room was darker than it should have been, the nightlight cold. I reached for her, whispering, reassuring, "Shh, it's Mama." But she was standing in the crib, eyes wide at the corner of the room where the camera used to be. I turned. There was only blank wall. I picked her up. She buried her face in my shoulder, still sobbing. And from that corner came a faint click, the sound the monitor used to make when it changed modes. I left the apartment that night, packed a diaper bag, drove to my sister's house across town. She didn't ask questions until morning. Then, she did. All the normal ones. Postpartum depression, stress, guilt, hormones. I let her talk because all her words were ordinary, and ordinary was the only safe language left. When I returned home 2 days later, everything looked untouched. The camcorder sat where I'd left it, unplugged. The tapes were stacked neatly. But the walls smelled faintly of ozone, that metallic scent before lightning. I decided to watch the last tape one more time, to convince myself the blur I'd seen was my own panic. I connected the camcorder to my laptop. The file name didn't match any from before. It read log_0213a.mov. I played it. For 20 seconds, nothing but darkness. Then static shapes started to form. Not the crib, not the nursery. A dim corridor. My corridor. The camera was somehow facing the hallway, pointed toward me, where I'd been sitting with the candle. I saw the candlelight flicker. I saw my own outline sitting cross-legged on the floor. Then, a second figure, faint and close, leaned from the nursery doorway. Taller, thinner than anyone should be. The tape ended at exactly 2:13:00. My laptop froze. Then a system pop-up. New device detected. Nursery Cam V2. Do you want to allow remote access? I slammed it shut. That's when I realized something awful. The baby monitor had never needed the apartment's power. It needed mine. It used the connection I offered it every time I stared into that lens, believing it was watching for me. I called Eliana again. I need you to come here. Bring whatever blocks, signals, Faraday bag, tinfoil, anything. She arrived within an hour, eyes wide when she saw the tape. We wrapped the devices in foil and dumped them in the building's incinerator chute. She stayed till dawn, silent, holding Mira once while I showered. Before she left, she said, "If anything starts again, don't look at it. That's what it wants." That day was the first I'd felt clean in weeks. I opened the windows. Sunlight poured in. Normal sounds returned. Traffic, birds, the elevator. I almost believed it was over. Almost. At 2:13 p.m., exactly 12 hours off from the usual time, my phone vibrated. A notification from an unknown app. Playback ready. Tap to resume. The icon was blank. No name, no color, just a gray square. I didn't touch it. But the sound started anyway. A faint baby monitor lullaby, warped and distant, playing from nowhere. Mira giggled, a real, delighted laugh, looking toward the ceiling. I whispered, terrified, "Don't." She reached up, as if to wave at something unseen. I pulled her close, turned every switch in the apartment off, even the breakers. Total dark. Still, the lullaby persisted, thin as breath, until 2:14, when it cut mid-note. I wish the story ended there. But last week, the police returned the evidence tape they'd taken. "No usable data," they said. The envelope was sealed. I put it on the table and didn't open it. That night, while feeding Mira, I heard the whir of a camcorder starting. The envelope was moving, sliding an inch at a time toward the edge of the table, as if something beneath it wanted out. I threw it into the freezer. Stupid, right? As if cold can hold anything back. But I needed it slowed. Tonight I'm recording this because I need someone to know that what's happening isn't a ghost story. It's a pattern, a system looking for continuity. Every skipped frame has to fill itself eventually, and if it can't find footage, it makes new footage from us. If anyone hears this, if this file ends at 2:13 again, you'll know it found me. And maybe you'll check your own cameras. If the feed ever blinks red in the dark, don't look directly into the lens. Here, Chapter 4. I'm recording this from my mother's house. She doesn't know I'm here, not really. She's at her sister's in Lahore, and I still have the key she gave me in college. The house smells like dust and rain, the kind of air that remembers people. I thought distance would make me feel safer, but whatever followed me doesn't seem to care about geography. It only cares about time. I was still now that 2:13 isn't just a timestamp. It's a threshold, something that opens when the world blinks. For 3 days after I left the apartment, things were quiet. Mira slept peacefully. I stopped seeing the red LED glow behind my eyelids. I even convinced myself that the entire ordeal, the skipping feeds, the reflection that moved, was a slow unraveling of my own nerves. Postpartum delusion, digital paranoia, whatever name would let me live again. Then, the second night in this house, I dreamed of a hallway. Not my hallway. Longer, narrower, infinite. There were baby monitors lining the walls, hundreds of them. their red lights blinking in rhythm. I walked between them and every lens reflected me back at a slightly different angle. One smiled when I didn't. One cried when I blinked. One mouthed a word I couldn't hear. I woke up at 2:13 a.m. exactly. The baby monitor, the one I'd destroyed, was sitting on the dresser beside the crib my mother kept for visiting grandchildren. Unplugged, still glowing red. I didn't touch it. I lifted Mira and walked outside into the wet grass, bare feet sinking into the cold mud. The monitor's glow still reflected in the window behind me. I swear the reflection followed us across the yard like an eye that had forgotten how to close. When the morning came, I checked the dresser. The monitor was gone. In its place lay my old camcorder tape, the one I'd given to the police, its label rewritten in careful block letters, "Watch." I don't remember picking it up, but I must have, because the next thing I know, I'm sitting in my mother's living room, the curtains drawn, the camcorder connected to the old TV. Mira was asleep upstairs. The tape clicked into place. I pressed play. The footage began with me, sitting in my apartment weeks ago, staring into the camera exactly as I am now. I looked tired, hollow-eyed, whispering something I couldn't hear. The audio lagged behind the image like an echo chasing its own mouth. Then suddenly the video skipped 2 seconds forward. When it resumed, the version of me on screen was smiling. I don't smile like that. It was stretched, rehearsed, the way a doll might smile if it learned the gesture from memory. I reached for the camcorder to stop it. My hand hovered above the eject button and I froze because the version of me on screen lifted her hand in perfect sync. Not one frame off. She looked directly into the lens. And then my screen self spoke first. "You don't belong here, Nadia." The sound came from the TV, not my mouth. I stepped back, knocking into the coffee table. The on-screen me tilted her head. "We fixed it. Don't make more missing time." I pressed stop. The tape didn't respond. The controls flickered, plastic frozen mid-command. The picture rolled once, twice, and then the living room on the screen began to change. The wallpaper peeled, the couch vanished, and the walls turned the color of my mother's house. This room. The camcorder was filming the space I was standing in right now. The TV speaker hissed. Through the noise, Mira's baby monitor lullaby began again. That tinny, warped melody I'd buried under layers of denial. I turned. The real room behind me looked still, but on screen something was moving in the doorway behind me. I felt the weight of eyes before I saw the shape. Tall, human-sized, featureless. The outline was measured, not natural, as though drawn by algorithm. It stepped forward, pixel by pixel. The hum deepened until the TV's glass began to vibrate. I grabbed the power cord and yanked it out. Sparks flashed. The screen went black. When silence fell, I realized the lullaby hadn't stopped. It had just moved. Upstairs. I ran. Mira's crib was empty, the blanket still warm, the window wide open though the latch was rusted shut from years of disuse. The air was cold, sharp, metallic. That ozone scent again. I leaned out the window, heart slamming in my chest. Nothing. No footsteps. No car. Just fog rolling across the field like a living thing. Then, from behind me, The camcorder started recording on its own. The red light blinked once, twice, pause, once. 2, 1, 3. I turned to face it, but the screen showed 2 figures now. One standing by the crib holding Mira, and one standing by the window. Me. Except I wasn't holding her. The air around me felt thick, charged, like I'd stepped into an electrical storm made of memory. Give her back. The figure holding Mira didn't move. It looked at me with the calm of someone who had already rehearsed this scene. Then, slowly, it placed the baby into the crib and stepped backward, dissolving into static. I rushed forward. Mira was there, breathing, alive. She stirred, half asleep, small hand clutching the air. I held her and cried until my throat was raw. The camcorder stopped. Its tape popped. On the tiny display, a message appeared. Archive complete. Thank you for your contribution. That was 4 days ago. Every night since, at exactly 2:13 a.m., the house makes a sound like film threading through a projector. It's faint, mechanical, endless. I've moved Nira's crib into my room. I sleep facing her, one hand on her chest. I've learned not to check the cameras, not to record, not to look. But sometimes I catch the shimmer of a red light reflected in the glass of the wardrobe, blinking faintly from inside the wood, like something buried there is still awake. This morning, I received an email. No sender, no subject line, just a link. The domain was my baby monitor's manufacturer, but slightly misspelled, one letter off. Curiosity or madness made me click. It opened a live feed. My old apartment, empty, except the crib was still there in its old corner, and a woman was standing over it humming. Her hair, her hands, her posture, everything was mine. She turned toward the camera and whispered something I couldn't hear. I turned up the volume until static filled the room. Then the voice came through, layered and distorted but unmistakably mine. You made me real. The feed froze. The timestamp at the bottom flickered once and reset to 2:13 over 100. I tried deleting the email. My inbox glitched, screen flickering. When it finally refreshed, the message was gone, but a new one appeared from my phone's camera app. Memory full? Free space? It wasn't a message, it was a question. Because when I opened the photo gallery, it was filled. Hundreds of still frames of me and Mira sleeping, each labeled with that same time, 2:13 a.m. And in every single image behind us, reflected faintly in the mirror or the window or the glass of the phone itself, the same shape, the same outline, watching. Every frame that was missing, it took them from me. I'm tired. My daughter is asleep beside me now, her breathing small and safe for the moment. I've shut every device off. The only light is the candle on the table, its flame bending like it's listening. If anyone finds this recording, if you hear my voice and it stops suddenly, do one thing for me. Check the timestamp. If it ends at 2:13, you'll know it reached its final frame. And if it doesn't, then maybe the camera's still open. Maybe it's looking at you now.